Margaret Trudeau, author, advocate for mental health, and of course, the mother of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. We're very happy to have her with us from our studios in Montreal. Margaret, always good to talk to you. Thanks for this.
Thank you, Todd. How nice to talk to you.
You have
I'm
been,
glad to be part of this wonderful day.
it's wonderful to have you. You've been very open over the years with your own experience with mental health and how important it is to talk about it. And that's really the first step, isn't it?
Well, it certainly is. And you know, it's been 12 years now that I've been a mental health advocate, and I have crisscrossed this country many, many times. Small communities, big ones, universities, hospitals, whatever, organizations, talking about mental health, and particularly mental health in the workplace, because that's where it hits a lot of people the most, is that if they suffer a mental illness in the workplace and they aren't recognized as suffering and not diagnosed and not given help, the likelihood that they'll be able to stay in their job and keep working is so limited. So the conversation has to begin. It's a relevant one. It's not about people on the fringes of society. It's about mainstream people, you and me, who struggle at some points in our lives with our mental well-being. And you need help to get better. You need to start the conversation.
What's so fascinating about your experience, Margaret, is how you have watched attitudes evolve from when you first entered
Indeed.
the public consciousness in our country to today. And what's that been like? What have you seen?
Well, from the early, when I was first diagnosed, it was following the birth of one of my children, as is very common for women, that postpartum depression will be their first experience with mental illness, with depression, with all the wrong feeling and the isolation and the dark moods and the not feeling you're part of your life. That was where it started for me, and yet there wasn't really the help then. There was sort of mind-numbing drugs that turned me into a zombie. I thought, well, if this is what you want, this is the place you want to be in, me to be in, yuck, because I had lost my spirit and my fun and my ability to enjoy life, because the drugs back then were way wrong. And now we've got an evolved pharmaceutical therapies, which is one of the reasons that I'm well and sitting here, the proud grandma of 8 grandchildren and active in my life, in their lives. And I just love life. And it's because I gave in my long felt belief that nobody could help me. And certainly I wasn't getting on all those awful drugs. Well, the drugs saved me. They balanced my mind. They gave me correction to the dysfunction in my hormonal brain patterns. And so, yay. And then the therapy, of course, is what gives you your good, happy disposition, because you learn how not to be bitter and angry and blame other people for all your woes. You learn to take responsibility for your own emotions, for your own actions, and it's a good life you get.
You have been a champion and a crusader and very open and helped a lot of people talking about what you went through, because a lot of it is the stigma that even exists in 2018.
Oh. Yes, it is. But you know what, Todd? Have you noticed that the stigma is not nearly as strong in the younger generations? Well, if you listen to their music closely, they are divulging all their deepest, darkest emotions and crying and finding solutions in their lyrics and whatever. So our younger generation does not have the attitude that if we're flawed, if our emotions overtake us, if we lose control of our very selves by powerful emotions, which we may not have any control over. If it's a mental illness, we may need to have correction and pharmaceutical and good doctors to get us back, our brain health back on track. But I think that what's happened culturally is that there's just an openness to being open and to being authentic and not being a phony baloney about your feelings. And don't pretend to your parents that nothing's wrong when you think your world is falling apart and the bottom's coming out of it. Talk. Start the conversation. We want to listen.
One final thing has to do with a conversation that's going on now about the whole Me Too movement, where women are speaking up about things they've lived through. That's also part of all of this, isn't it?
My goodness, Todd, that it's the Me Too generation, Me Too movement, and Time's Up. It can be such a healing thing for people, particularly women suffering from anxiety and depression and low self-esteem because of the harassment and the sexual abuse that they just had to put up with. We had to put up with you an awful lot, you know, and we worked very hard. I have for 40 years, and I tried to raise my children to know, and I think I was accompanied by my whole generation to teach our children, our sons and our daughters, that no means no, and personal space and private space is sacred, and there can't be harassment and bullying. It's not acceptable. You have to be a fighter against it all. And I think that there's a loud voice for it. But for many women who were abused in their, perhaps in their marriages, domestic violence or sexual abuse, or anything that has hurt them and hurt their soul and their heart and made them lose their hope and their optimism, I think to know that you don't have to deny what happened anymore. It happened to many, many, many of us, and you're not alone. And to get beyond it, maybe you need to talk to somebody. I don't think just throwing out blame is the way. That's not mentally sound, really. What we have to do is be forgiving and move on and move out of our hurt and our feelings of damage into a healthy attitude towards ourselves, of how brave we are to still be standing, you know?
Margaret, great to have you with us on the program. It's always
Thank
a
you,
pleasure to
Todd.
interview you, and great to
Thank
have
you.
you again today.
Thank you, Todd. Well, happy Bell Day. I just love this day. Thank you.
Margaret Trudeau, author and advocate for mental health, and of course, the mother of our current Prime Minister.